Hello, welcome to Are You Digital, the video blog bringing Rutgers thought leadership to the marketplace. My name is Eric Greenberg. I'm a faculty member with the Rutgers Center for Management Development and a host of the show. Today's program is focused on digital marketing strategies. Our guest is Mike Moran, currently teaching our digital marketing strategy session. Mike has over 15 years experience in the internet. He is the Chief Strategist at Converseon. Welcome, Mike.
Hi, nice to be here, Eric.
Thanks.
And I am digital. I'm actually not even here right now. This is a
Superimposed,
hologram, yes.
Well, I know you're frequently traveling. You're
That's
off
true.
to Europe soon, so
That's
we
true.
might have to actually do that in the future. Mike, you talked a lot today about digital marketing strategies. When you go out and consult to firms in the marketplace, how would you rate firms in terms of taking advantage of opportunities that are currently available?
It's really all over the map. I mean, there are some companies that I talk to where they have really thought through what their digital strategies are. They've made big commitments to digital. There are some companies that have half of their marketing spend in digital now, which a few years ago people would have thought was crazy. But I see other companies where a lot of them are B2B companies that not only are struggling with how to get going with digital marketing, but one of the reasons is they don't even have a culture of marketing. B2B companies, a lot of them, their idea of marketing was, I guess we need to update the brochure for the trade show, and so that was marketing. And so they don't have any history of doing any marketing. And so digital marketing is very difficult for them, not so much because it's digital, but because it's marketing.
Okay. When you talk to those companies, you go in to consult with them, what do you do to try to get them comfortable, to try to experiment with digital marketing strategies?
Honestly, a lot of the times it's not about comfort. If you're really comfortable with what you're doing, you're not really experimenting. And so most of the time, there isn't a lot of comfort here. And I mean, one of the things I feel compelled to tell them sometimes is that you're being paid a lot of money and you're not being paid to be comfortable. With digital marketing, if you ever get to the point that you think you understand it, then wait 10 minutes and it'll change. So it's never really comfortable. If you're really thinking about what's important for your business, if you're thinking about how your competitors are moving, that's not a comfortable place. It's a place where you always feel like you're probably missing something because you are. And you always feel like you don't really understand the technology because you don't. You always feel like if only I was younger I would get it, but you're not. And so it's really difficult to say, how do we get them to feel comfortable? It's really more important to say, how do we get them to do the right things for their business, even if it feels extremely uncomfortable?
Okay. You mentioned 50% of their spend on digital marketing being a high number. We see in the marketplace consumer viewing behavior shifting radically, where it's even greater shifts than that.
Yeah.
And there's a lot of talk about marketing, isn't catching up. What would you recommend firms spending, more than 50% on marketing, and where do you think the number should be today?
It's very hard to give a blanket answer for that, but one of the reasons that you don't see marketing spending approaching, higher numbers than that is because one of the cool things about digital marketing is that you can have a lot of exposure there without spending a lot of money. So I don't think you're ever going to see digital marketing be somebody's spending show you how much impact they really have, because a lot of digital marketing is more like public relations than advertising. So if you look at things like organic search, it's free, ostensibly. It costs you money to do things, but you don't have to pay the search engines any money to be shown. If you look at things like social media, the amount that you spend on the actual creation of the social media is pretty minuscule. You would spend more to make a TV commercial, and think about how much you have to pay to put on a TV commercial. You don't have to pay anything to put a video up on YouTube. You don't have to pay anything to get people to watch it, to get them to pass it along to their friends. And so if you look at how people spend on PR is never a big part of a marketing budget, because most of what you do in PR is free. It's work, it's effort, it's thought, it's coming up with a story, it's knowing how to tell it, it's coming up with something interesting. A lot of what goes on in digital marketing is more like public relations than advertising, and so you might be really focusing on digital marketing, but it's not that your spending ratio is going to show that focus.
Interesting. Well, do you see the traditional spending going down?
Definitely. And in fact, the changes in the economy have actually put a lot of pressure there. I mean, the thing that is really difficult for CMOs today is that they're under immense pressure to show return on investment. If you look at how the CEO and the CFO are looking at all of the other C-level officers around the table, they're expecting them to be able to explain what happens when they get their budget cut. And the problem with the CMO is they've never had a good answer to that question. One of my friends, Jeff Ramsey, who's the head of eMarketer, he likes to tell a story where the CEO goes around the table and says, you know, what happens if I cut you 10%? What if I cut you 10%? What if I cut you 10%? And so the guy in charge of operations can tell you that you have to close a plant, and the guy who's in charge of sales can tell you that you're going to drop your sales 12%, and he turns to the marketing guy and he says, what if I cut you 10%? And he says, well, you know, your brand awareness is really going to tank. And he says, oh, cool, I'll cut you 20%. Right? Because he doesn't know what that means. It doesn't have any monetary value to him. It doesn't mean anything to the bottom line. And so unless marketers are able to talk to the CEO and the CFO in terms that they understand, and digital marketing lets them do that, traditional marketing is going to continue to suffer because it doesn't have that same ability to show return on investment. And what I think happened during the most recent downturn is there was a lot of companies that would call me up and say, okay, we have to cut our marketing spend 20%. So here's what we were thinking. We're actually going to cut it 30%, and we're going to give you guys 10% to figure out how to do on digital enough that will make up for the fact that we cut it. And so when you hear customers asking you things like that, and this wasn't one or two, this was a lot of clients who had the same idea, you can see that there's a real trend happening, and I do think that traditional media is going to continue to have problems keeping up the margins that they've had.
Now, I would think you were mentioning digital marketing has more tools to measure and to measure results and to prove ROI to the CMO. You would think, do you see firms scaling it up? I mean, are these solutions scalable such that you do a small test, you get 10%?
Right.
You know, are companies willing to pull the trigger to ramp it up?
It is scalable, but the thing that is the biggest problem was actually in your question when you said if somebody does something and they see that it goes up 10%, the problem is they can't tell. The biggest impact that digital marketing has is on sales, just like any marketing, but most companies don't do a very good job of tracking it. So if you had a company that is an e-commerce company, it's easy. You do something, you see the shopping cart, but most of the companies that sell offline, and that's probably 80 to 90% of companies, they don't know how to connect the dots. And so a lot of the traditional things that direct marketers have done to help you understand what caused the action of a sale, a lot of large companies don't even know how to pass a lead from the website to their CRM system. Most of them don't even have a CRM system, right? They don't know how it got to the sales force. It's the same as a TV commercial. They spend a lot of money, they do something, and then a miracle occurs and something sells. And they don't really know what has happened in between. So they can't really connect what they did to what happened. And so I spend a lot of my time helping companies know how to make that connection. Because once you have that connection, then every time you do something, you can tell whether it was a good idea or a bad idea. And if it's a good idea, you do more of it. If it's a bad idea, you stop. And that is really what's missing for a lot of companies.
So just focusing on that a little bit, you mentioned technology, they don't have CRM systems, the processes, they may not have the right, and I guess there's people issues as well. I mean, where of those three areas, where do you see firms need to focus the most, or are you going to say, or all of them perhaps?
Well, I mean, if you take any broad enough population, the answer is always all of them, right? So it can't possibly be not all of them. But if you ask me what I think the most important piece is, I think it's the process of sales. I think treating sales as a process the same way you treat manufacturing as a process. I mean, you can't imagine a company that wouldn't have a way of understanding what their costs are in manufacturing, understanding that when they changed the assembly line that costs went up or down. I mean, you can't imagine a company that would operate that way in these days. I mean, they even go to the point of just-in-time manufacturing where they're optimizing supply chains. I mean, they've really taken this to an art form. You do not see that kind of focus on sales. Only in a few companies to really know how to do that well.
Are we moving to a world of Six Sigma, sales in terms of trying to get it down to that level of detail?
Possibly, but I mean, I think that's probably overkill But I think that, maybe like, 2.5 sigma would be pretty cool, because we don't really do anything in sales in most of these companies to figure out what's going on. We have these smart salespeople, we send them leads, they close or they don't close, and we don't really know why. We never really analyze whether it's the leads are bad or whether it's the salespeople aren't doing a good job or whether the customers have changed what they're looking for. We don't know a lot of those questions, and it's because we don't track what's going on. And we're making it simple. We're talking about what it's like for direct sales forces. I mean, a lot of companies have much more indirect channels where it's even harder. I mean, if you walk into a pharmaceutical firm and you say, how did your marketing actually get doctors to prescribe things to patients? I mean, this looks like a Rube Goldberg diagram when they finish drawing this on the board for you. So there's a lot of industries where it's understandable that it's very difficult for them to make those connections. But I would argue that there's plenty of businesses where it's not that hard to make these connections, but nobody's really put the effort in being systematic about it.
Okay. I guess final question is one on technology. There's a lot of cool technologies that are available today in the marketplace. Location-based marketing, Bluetooth marketing, QR codes. Any technology you think that companies really should be looking at experimenting with?
I think that depending on what company you are, you should be experimenting with all of them. For the thing that I think is hard about digital marketing is that there's always something new coming along, and I see two fairly emotional reactions to those things. The first one is, this is too much, I can't follow this, let me wait and see what happens, and maybe in a couple of years, if I see everybody else doing it, then I'll do it. And the other emotional reaction I see is, new shiny object, we have to run after this, we have to do this first, or I heard someone else is doing it, and so we should do it. Neither of those make any sense to make a business decision. And it's not how you make business decisions in the rest of your business. And so what you really need to do is to understand what it is that you're good at and what it is your strategy is and how you're going to use it. I mean, if you look at location-based marketing, if I'm a bar, I'm all over this. I want people competing to be mayor of my bar so I can give them a free drink. Who cares? I mean, this is awesome. I'll give away as many free drinks as possible to whoever wants to be mayor today. On the other hand, if I'm, an insurance company, I don't think anybody's going to care about checking in when they walk into my insurance agent's office. I mean, it's just boring. You think some of my friends are going to show up and come in because I'm at the insurance agent's office? I mean, and so you have to think about what your business is and understand what things make sense to your customers and what things might not, and go after them.
I think the Apple Store could probably get people excited about insurance.
I think they might be able to, but I'd love to see them try, I'll tell you that.
Well, thank you very much, Mike.
You're welcome. Thank you, Eric.
Okay. Our next show will be on social media. We have our guest will be Lee Evans, who just came out with the latest book. We hope you'll join us. Thank you.